All right, welcome to the deep dive. We're kicking things off today with a real head scratcher from the Old West.
Oh, yeah. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah. Picture this. It's 1948 deep in Texas.
Okay, got it.
And this elderly gentleman, Ollie Roberts, steps forward and says, well, he claims he's actually Billy the Kid.
Wow. Billy the Kid. But wasn't he? I mean, everyone knows Pat Garrett shot him, right? Decades before 48.
That's the official story, yeah. Gunned down way back in 1881.
Mm.
So this claim is, well, it's pretty out there.
It really is. It's that immediate clash, isn't it? You've got history books saying one thing and then this personal testimony popping up.
Exactly.
We have the story of this man, Ollie Roberts, Brushy Bill, he became known as.
Mm-hmm.
And our aim here really is to unpack it. Look at the details, the evidence, and just consider, could it be true? Or is it just a fascinating story?
And why does it still grip us?
Right.
Because the legend of Billy the Kid himself is so huge.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the gunslinger, the central figure in that whole Lincoln County war mess.
Right.
The guy who supposedly escaped custody, killed deputies, and then finally met his end thanks to Pat Garrett. Buried in Fort Sumner. That's the accepted narrative.
That's the one we all learn.
Yes.
So yeah, when someone like Brushy Bill turns up like 70 years later saying, hold on a minute.
It definitely makes you pause. It's bound to raise some eyebrows.
For sure. So Brushy Bill, Hico, Texas, 1948. This older guy living a quiet life suddenly claims this infamous identity.
The sheer unlikelihood of it is just striking. How often does history potentially get rewritten so late in the game?
It feels like fiction almost.
Yeah, straight out of a Western novel. And to really get why this was such a bombshell, we probably need a quick recap of the standard Billy the Kid story.
Good idea. So born Henry McCarty, probably around 1859, maybe 1860. We're not even totally sure on the year.
Right. Started out in New York, apparently. Then the family moved west, New Mexico territory. Tough upbringing, lost his parents young.
And that seems to be where things started to go sideways. Orphaned, fell in with the wrong crowd, got into trouble pretty quickly.
Then came the Lincoln County War. That really escalated things.
Hugely. He joined the regulators, seeking revenge for the murder of John Tunstall, his employer.
And things got bloody. He became a key player in that violence.
Yeah, that conflict really forged his reputation. Part folk hero to some, part dangerous killer to others.
And it wasn't even old. Still just a kid, really. Barely 20, maybe 21. Already a notorious outlaw.
Then came the capture in 81, and that famous escape.
Right, killing two deputies, James Bell and Robert Olander, to get out of the Lincoln County Jail. Pretty audacious.
Made him even more infamous, which led to Pat Garrett hunting him down again.
And that brings us to July 14th, 1881. Pete Maxwell's ranch, Fort Sumner.
Garrett's account is that he surprised Billy in a dark room, shot him dead. Case closed.
Or so everyone thought. Until Ollie Brushy Bill Roberts shows up.
Exactly, which brings us back to Hico.
Okay.
So Brushy Bill reaches out to this lawyer, William Morrison.
Morrison was apparently researching Old West figures, right? So Brushy contacts him.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really compelling. Brushy didn't just say, I'm Billy. He apparently knew an incredible amount of detail.
Like what kind of details?
Specifics about the Lincoln County War, names, places, events, things that weren't necessarily common knowledge, even details about private conversations Billy supposedly had, injuries he sustained.
That's the part that makes you stop and think. How could he know all that if he wasn't there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It makes you really question, like, what counts as historical proof versus lived memory?
And Brushy had an explanation for surviving 1881.
Oh, he did. And it was as bold as the initial claim. He said Garrett didn't shoot him.
So who did Garrett shoot?
Brushy claimed Garrett shot somebody else. He suggested a guy named Billy Barlow, maybe others, essentially a decoy.
A decoy, why?
Well, according to Brushy, Garrett was under pressure to bring the kid in, dead or alive. So this let Garrett claim victory, satisfy the authorities.
Well, the real Billy the Kid vanished.
That was Brushy's story. He even alleged there was like a secret agreement between him and Garrett. Let Billy disappear, live quietly under a new name.
Wow. Okay, so Morrison hears all this.
And he's intrigued. Deeply. He starts investigating. This wasn't just taking Brushy at his word.
Right, he needed more.
Morrison gathered affidavits. These are sworn statements from people still alive who'd known the young Billy the Kid back in the day.
And they said?
Some of them claimed they recognized this old man, Brushy, as being the same person they knew decades earlier.
Huh. What else?
Well, there was some photographic analysis done trying to compare photos of young Billy with photos of Brushy. Some people saw strong resemblances.
Facial recognition, basically.
Yeah.
But from old photos, that can be tricky.
Very tricky. Definitely not conclusive science back then, or even now sometimes. But there was more. Brushy reportedly had scars.
Scars?
Yeah, scars on his body that seemed to match known gunshot wounds and other injuries Billy the Kid was documented to have suffered.
Okay, that's more specific.
And Morrison's whole campaign, it seems, wasn't really about fame or money for Brushy or himself.
What was the goal then?
It was about getting that pardon. The pardon Billy the Kid was supposedly promised by Governor Lew Wallace back in 1879.
Ah, the pardon for testifying about the Lincoln County War stuff.
Exactly. A promise that was never kept. Morrison wanted to finally make good on that, get Brushy officially recognized as Billy, and secure the pardon.
So they decided to take the case directly to the top.
Yep. They made a trip to Santa Fe, New Mexico in December 1950 to meet the current governor, Thomas Mabry.
High-stakes meeting. The culmination of everything.
You'd think so, but it went disastrously wrong.
Oh, no. What happened?
The meeting was apparently chaotic. There were press members there, skeptics. It wasn't a quiet, formal review.
So a lot of pressure on Brushy.
Intense pressure.
Yeah.
And the old man, Brushy, he reportedly struggled under the questioning. Seemed confused, couldn't answer basic things clearly, like his birth date consistently.
That doesn't sound good.
No. And then, right there, during the meeting, he collapsed. Suffered a stroke.
Oh, wow. How awful.
Just devastating. A truly tragic end to that effort.
Did he recover?
No. Brushy Bill Roberts died just a few weeks later back in Hico.
So he never got the recognition or the pardon?
Never. But the story didn't quite die with him.
How so?
His gravestone. In Hico, Texas, it reads, Ollie L. Brushy Bill Roberts. And then underneath, William H. Bonney, a.k.a. Billy the Kid.
They actually put Billy the Kid on his tombstone.
They did. Which really speaks volumes about how we remember people, how legends persist, even when the proof is, debated.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This lingering question.
Absolutely.
No.
Because the mainstream historical view is still pretty firm. Pat Garrett killed Billy the Kid in 1881, full stop.
That's what the history books say.
But then you have these little nagging inconsistencies Brushy's story taps into.
Like what?
Well, like you mentioned, Garrett shot him in a dark room. But why was there no autopsy performed on the body?
Good point. To confirm identity.
Right. And why weren't any photographs taken of the body? That seems odd for such a high-profile killing, even back then.
You'd think they'd want proof.
And then there's the grave itself in Fort Sumner. It's unmarked. Or the marker place later covers a general area because the original spot was lost to floods. It just adds to the uncertainty.
It leaves that door slightly ajar for doubt.
Precisely. So you're left with these two possibilities. Was Brushy Bill just an old man seeking attention, maybe a bit confused, maybe spinning a yarn? Or was he actually who he claimed to be, the real Billy the Kid, who lived out his life in obscurity, only to try and reclaim his identity at the very end and maybe finding the world wasn't ready to listen?
It's fascinating how persistent that alternative story is,
Yeah.
even without widespread historical acceptance.
It really shows the power of belief, I think, and that enduring romantic image of the outlaw in American mythology.
And people are still drawn to it today.
Definitely. You mentioned the tombstone. There's also a Billy the Kid museum in Hico dedicated to Brushy Bill's claim.
Wow, a whole museum.
Yep. And apparently people still visit his grave, leave flowers. It shows how much we love an unsolved mystery, that place where history and legend blur.
Yeah. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how much of history is the agreed-upon story versus, well, what actually happened. How many other versions might be out.
Exactly. How much is solid fact and how much is just the narrative that won out, the one that got repeated the most? It's a fundamental question about understanding the past.
So the final question remains. Brushy Bill Roberts, elaborate hoaxer, maybe delusional old man, or the last outlaw, the real Billy the Kid hiding in plain sight?
We just don't know for sure, and maybe we never will.
And perhaps that uncertainty is precisely why the story endures. It keeps us guessing, keeps us talking.
It invites you to keep digging, doesn't it? To remember that history isn't always as neat and tidy as we like to think. Sometimes the most interesting parts are the questions without easy answers.